I know what's ahead. I could feel the future.
From a producer of Top Gun Maverick and based on the award-winning novels by Isaac Asimov comes the next Apple TV Plus streaming event.
Empire and our foundation headed for war.
This could change everything.
The Foundation is a threat to my empire. We will destroy them.
We are taking the planet!
Foundation, the new season, streaming July 14th, only on Apple TV Plus.
Welcome back to The Bulwark Goes to Hollywood. My name is Sonny Bunch. I'm culture editor at The Bulwark. And I'm very pleased to be joined today by Jake Tapper. We've had Jake on the show before talking about his great book, The Outpost. And he is here today to talk about his new novel, All the Demons Are Here. We're going to talk about some of his older novels as well. We'll talk about some of the process of writing, etc. But Jake, thanks for being back on the show. Really appreciate it.
It's great. As you know, you are the movie critic I turn to the most. And I agree with you most of the time.
Well, we'll get that percentage up. I'll turn you around to bunchist thinking on all movies. But movies play a big part in your books here, and I want to talk about that a little bit as we go on. But let's discuss the new novel first. All right, All the Demons Are Here. It's the third book. Do you have is there a name for the series? Is it
the
like
Charlie
the
and Margaret Martyr?
Okay.
Mysteries, I guess. But,
the Charlie and Margaret Martyr mysteries. I like that. We get that rolling off the tongue. But this book is more focused on their children, Ike and Lucy Martyr, yes. Who we kind of meet and get involved with here. Why don't you run us through what is the setup of All the Demons Are Here? What's the backstory? What do people need to know before they pick it up if they haven't read the first two?
Well, first of all, I write the books assuming that people haven't read the previous one or two, so they don't have to read the previous ones. The book is basically about the Ike and Lucy. Ike is an AWOL Marine who is working on Evel Knievel's pit crew. It is 1977 in Montana, and it's a wild time in the United States, much less Montana. Evel Knievel is I don't know how familiar your listeners are with Evel Knievel, but he is a wild, quintessentially American salesman, showman, con artist, and the like, and a great character, not necessarily a great person, but a great character in his own right. So that's Ike. And then Lucy is his older sister, and she's a journalist in DC. She leaves the Washington Star newspaper to go work for a brand new tabloid started by a Murdoch-esque family that has moved to DC to get a toehold in the world of media. And her story is more about her trying to solve a serial killer, the crimes of a serial killer, which she covers, and also just about the rise of tabloid journalism in the U.S. in 1977. But 1977 is almost a character unto itself because it's such a crazy year with Evel Knievel, the death of Elvis, UFOs, cults, Studio 54, disco, the New York City blackout, and all the other things going on in the culture at that time.
It's great to read. So the previous books in the series starts with the Hellfire Club, which is set in 1950s Washington D.C. Then we move to The Devil May Dance, which deals with kind of the Rat Pack era of Hollywood, and here we are in the 70s. And one of the things I really like about them is that they are historical novels, right? They're novels that kind of touch on different real life characters, obviously very fictionalized for these books, but still dealing with the kind of history of America, kind of pop history of America. When you sit down to write them, so you sit down to write the Hellfire Club, what is the research process like for this? Obviously, you've got a lot, just up in your head about McCarthy era Washington, lots to pull from there. But when you're trying to get specifics, names of sitting congressmen, senators, or locations of buildings, that sort of thing, what is your research process like?
I do a lot of research, but that's just from my journalistic background that I love nonfiction, and so I read a lot. For the Hellfire Club, a lot of it was based on real things that happened. There was a Hellfire Club, as people may or may not know, that was a kind of a sex club in England in the 18th century that Benjamin Franklin visited at one point. And that's real. So I read 2 books on the Hellfire Club, the actual one. And then I read a lot about Joe McCarthy, a great book by Jack Anderson that was written, I think, in 1952. Fantastic book. And then I read a lot about the comic book hearings, and I read about Estes Kefauver. And the first book is about, it's about a lot of things, but it's about compromise. It's about people who come to Washington, D.C. to do good things, and then little by little they lose parts of their soul in order to try to get anything achieved. It's also about, shadowy groups and the military-industrial complex. I read a lot about Eisenhower for that first book, too. And then the second book, it's Attorney General Robert Kennedy basically blackmails Charlie and Margaret to go out and investigate Frank Sinatra to see if he's actually mobbed up or if it's just kind of an act. And that one was based on a real story too, on the fact that Frank Sinatra, after President Kennedy got elected, wanted President Kennedy to stay with him at his Rancho Mirage estate during a visit to California in 1962. And it had the place built up. This is all real. A helipad and a place for the reporters to go and extra rooms and this and that. And then he had his heart broken when Kennedy did not go. And he did not go because of the exact reason that Charlie and Margaret are sent out in this fictitious version to investigate, which is that people at the FBI told Robert Kennedy, your brother cannot go and hang out with Frank Sinatra. He's mobbed up. So a lot of it's real, but then I just have fun playing with all of it.
Yeah. And then, of course, we get to the Evel Knievel sections of this book, which are super interesting to me. All right. So I'm going to play fact or fiction here. Did Evel Knievel actually toy with a run for president as you have in the book here?
No, not that I know of.
Okay. Because it's really amusing to watch him kind of work through the process of, trying to figure out what to stand for. And I don't think I'm going too far out on a limb here to suggest that he's kind of modeled in a shall we say Trumpian way in his
I think they're cut from the same cloth. I think that just is a fact, and then I just took it and played with it. They both, and this isn't meant as a slam on Trump or Evel Knievel, but they both have this quintessentially American kind of P.T. Barnum quality of let's put on a show, let's figure out what people like, they can capture and get news attention, media attention. They can put butts in the seats. They can get followers. And it's funny. I don't know anything about motorcycles, and motorcycles are a big part of this book. Ike drives a motorcycle. Evel Knievel obviously drives a motorcycle. There are lots of scenes where there's motorcycle action pivotal to the plot. And so after I wrote the book, the first draft, I found a guy named Mark Gardner, who's a motorcycle expert and also writer. And I hired him to edit those parts because I don't know about you, Sonny, but I hate it when I'm watching a movie or a TV show about journalism or about politics, and they just don't even know anything about what they're talking about. It just takes me completely out of it. And so I didn't want that to happen for any motorcyclists. I wanted them to enjoy the book. I don't want them to be yelling at the pages and saying, you don't know the first thing about motorcycle riding. So anyway, so he edited it and did a great job. Really good guy. And then afterwards he said, I don't know if you'd seen this, but I wrote this a few years ago, and he had written an essay comparing Evel Knievel to Donald Trump. I didn't know. I stumbled on Evel Knievel because I was out fishing with some friends in Idaho back in 2021, and they all loved Evel Knievel, who had attempted to jump the Snake River Canyon in 1974, a few miles away. They loved him. I had completely missed him, and I did not see the appeal. But as a fiction writer, I saw the appeal of grabbing him and turning him into a character in the book. And Sonny, you might find interesting also, just because you're a movie guy. My understanding is Hollywood has been trying to figure out how to make an Evel Knievel movie. I mean, there was a shitty one made starring George Hamilton in 1970 or 1971, but a real Evel Knievel movie for years. I heard that, and I don't know if this is true, but I heard that Leonardo DiCaprio has the rights to it. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I can understand why they have a problem with it, because he's a horrible guy. Yeah, he's an awful guy. He's a great antagonist for me, for my book, but he'd be a horrible protagonist for for a biopic because he's horrible to his wife and he's anti-Semitic and all the rest.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could see a Paul Thomas Anderson style rambling, Boogie Nights-esque, rise and fall of the great American showman sort of thing. I think that could work.
There's no third act redemption. There's no arc. If you just,
I mean, that could in and of itself be the real American story, right? Look, the Evel Knievel is interesting again because as you say, he is the kind of quintessential American showman, entertainer, raconteur. And we get another glimpse of that in this book with the Death of Elvis, which, as you mentioned, huge kind of pivotal moment in American history. When you were looking at his death and that kind of surrounding drama, what was it that jumped out at you about how the people reacted to it? Because there's a really interesting, almost biblical scene at the Graceland mansion after his death in your book.
Yeah, I mean, and I did draw on the Bible for it as well. First of all, the Death of Elvis. I loved Elvis as a kid. So I was 8 years old in 1977. But of all the things I write about in the book, there are only a couple I actually remember. One of them is the Death of Elvis. I had like 30 Elvis albums, and I really loved him, and I took his death hard as a kid, just because I thought he was so cool. And now, admittedly, I was a little bit more focused on pre-1970 Elvis than I was on the Elvis of the 70s. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But what I thought was interesting about the Death of Elvis was just like the idea that he did symbolize something. And I actually drew upon a great documentary by one of the Jarecki brothers for some of my Elvis, and there are acknowledgments in the back, so nobody should think I'm not giving credit to people. There are acknowledgments in the back of the book. But Elvis picked money over quality over and over and over. It happened all the time. His movies are a great example. His movies are, with maybe the possible exception of like 3 or 4 of them, just horrible. They're just horrible movies. So he represented something about American culture, not just how much people loved him and how cool he seemed and all the good qualities he had, but also some of the negative qualities he had, about how he was encouraged to do what was profitable almost every time, at every turn in his career.
Yeah. No, I mean, that is, this is also one of the takeaways from, did you enjoy Baz Luhrmann's Elvis biopic from last year?
I did. Yeah. I liked it a lot. I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I thought that kid did a great job. I forget his name.
Austin Butler.
Yeah, right? He did a fantastic job, although I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to see him and not think of Elvis ever again, because they look so alike.
I want to jump back to something you had mentioned before. You gave the book to a friend who actually rides motorcycles. He knows what he's talking about. What was there anything he picked up on? Was like, all right, you're talking about this wrong. This is not correct. What was that actual process like? Because I was like, one thing I really enjoy hearing is when somebody gets something wrong and how they fix it. Because I get things wrong all the time, and people are not shy about telling me how to fix it. So what was there anything that he when he was reading it was like, all right, it would actually be more like this?
Yeah, I mean, he's not a friend per se. He's a guy I found online after reading his writing about motorcycles, and I hired him to edit the motorcycle parts. And he was, I mean, that was just, I have found, as this is my 6th book, and I have found it's much better to get the edits before publishing than after.
Yes.
So I just didn't. He said he would just rewrite sections and say, no, he would be doing this, he would be doing that. He would just do edits on the technical stuff, and I would just accept the edits. And I think I accepted like 9 out of 10 of them. I mean, percentage wise, it was he knows motorcycles, I don't, and I wanted it to read correct. And I also find that when you're a reader, even if you don't know about motorcycles, if you're convinced that the guy writing about it does, you go along with it. So there are times in the book that I will read when I'm rereading the book where Ike, the character, who the book is written in first person in alternating chapters. Ike writes a chapter, then Lucy writes a chapter, then Ike, then Lucy. So Ike knows about motorcycles. So Ike has to know about motorcycles in his writing. So you just have to believe that Ike knows what he's talking about. And so I'll reread the sections, and I'm like, well, Ike knows what he's talking about here, because Mark helped infuse him with an expertise that I don't have.
You mentioned the structure of this book, which is different from your previous books, and I was curious why you made that shift from kind of a more third person omniscient
third person
to a first person. Like, this is from their perspective. You know, the chapters themselves are kind of structured differently. You know, Ike's is more colloquial and familiar, I think, whereas, you know, Lucy's has footnotes because it's like she's writing a chapter in a book. What was your thinking there in terms of the I don't know, authorial intent?
Trying something new, setting a challenge for myself to see if I could do it, to see if I could achieve it, to see if writing in third person is, you know, more traditional, and it's easier in some ways. And I wanted to try something new, and it seemed, I don't want to use the word bold, but challenging. It was a challenge. You know, can I write a book in first person, and can I write in first person for two different people alternating? And how do I do that? How do I do it so Ike sounds like Ike and Lucy sounds like Lucy, and you don't need to check the beginning of the chapter to see who's writing. Like, you can tell Ike curses more. He talks about music. He talks about motorcycles. He's writing like a 20-year-old dude, whereas Lucy is more like an annoying reporter, because that's what she is, an annoying reporter like I am, and more likely to correct people's misuse of the word ironic, more likely to provide footnotes. And the footnotes are there 95% as a character device, not as an informational device. I could have, you know, I guess I could have just included stuff within the body of the text, but I thought Lucy's character would be, as a journalist, as a print journalist, as kind of a know-it-all, she'd want to provide these footnotes to people so they know who this congressman is that if there was a fleeting mention of. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think it was just a bar I set for myself and wanted to see if I could clear it.
When you were writing it, were you imagining it as? See, I'm always fascinated by framing devices. This is one reason why I struggled a little bit with the new Wes Anderson movie, because it has a very strange framing device.
I haven't seen it yet. Did you like it?
I didn't love it, but partly for it's like a play within a play, but I think the whole thing might be the play. I'm still struggling with it. It's a neither here nor there. It's a
little precious. I love his stuff, but it does get a little twee.
Yeah, it can be. So here, I'm curious, when you're putting it together, and again, you have this kind of very specific voice for both of them, but also stylistically, are you imagining it like they have written this book together, or she is writing a story about it? What is the framing device from your perspective as the author of these two authors?
I'm thinking of Ike as just telling the story of what happened to him. He's not sitting down and writing it. This is just him talking or thinking. I mean, the chapters do start with every chapter starts with an Elvis lyric. Because he loves Elvis. But it's just him telling a story to somebody. And Lucy's a journalist. She's submitting this somewhere. That's just kind of how I pictured it in my head.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about influences here. When you, as an author, who are some of the writers that you were I don't know, philosophically or artistically indebted to as you're sitting down to write these books?
There's so many. So, I mean, just as a kid, I loved Roald Dahl. But in terms of like stuff I've read and as an adult, Pete Dexter and Richard Price are huge influences. Matt Clam is a friend and a writer who I admire a lot. Gillian Flynn, I admire a lot. There are a lot of thriller writers that I think do an amazing job who I admire. David Baldacci and Harlan Coben and Don Winslow and T.J. Newman and Michael Connelly. I love the Lincoln Lawyer TV show. I haven't seen the second season yet, but he's done a really good job. And also Bosch. I love that show too. So there are a lot of people like that, but I'm a ravenous reader. I'm constantly reading. I'm usually reading like 3 or 4 books at the same time. One is on Audible in my car. One is on Kindle on my phone. One's a graphic novel and one's a print novel. It's so there are too many to name, but those are a few.
Yeah, I will say that these books do fit kind of firmly into the thriller beach read mode. If you're headed out to the beach this summer for a week, I will say you do not have to have read the Hellfire Club or The Devil May Dance before reading All the Demons Are Here. Jake is right. I think you could probably get most of what's going on in All the Demons Are Here without having read them. But I would recommend reading them because they're interesting, and you do get a lot of you get a lot of background on Congressman Martyr and his wife Margaret that will pay off a bit in the third book. I want to talk a little bit about The Devil May Dance because it's very much a book about the intersection of Hollywood and politics and all that. And for
a film guy, the Manchurian Candidate and the filming of the Manchurian Candidate and the filming of other movies, including The Birds and others, are major parts of the book.
Exactly. So what were some of your resources aside from just watching The Birds or the Manchurian Candidate? Great movies, of course, but what was your research like there? What were you reading to kind of get prepped for that?
I read a lot of great books on the Rat Pack. Nick Tachis has a great one on Dean Martin called Dino. I read Kaplan, I forget his first name, Richard Kaplan, I think, but he wrote a couple biographies of Sinatra that were great. I read Sinatra's valet wrote a book. I read that. I read a book. I read Judith Exner's book, the woman who allegedly had an affair with both JFK and Sam Giancana. I read her book, which it's tough to find because somebody got rid of a lot of those copies. I don't know who it was, but somebody did. And I read a lot of stuff about the seedy business of film, Tippi Hedren's memoir and others. Because as much as the Hellfire Club is about politics in the 50s and All the Demons Are Here, the new one is about kind of American culture and the rise of tabloid journalism in the 70s. The second one, the Devil May Dance, is really about Hollywood, and it's about the intersection of Hollywood and politics, definitely. But there's just a ton about how gross Hollywood is and how seedy it is, and how much people like Sinatra or Hitchcock or whoever get away with in that era. Although I should note that Sinatra's he's not a villain in the book at all. In fact, at the end of the day, he's probably a rather sympathetic, if tragic, character. But there are 2 books full of essays about just the Manchurian Candidate, including one by Greil Marcus that I read. I read a lot of film criticism about the Manchurian Candidate and about the significance of that film. We should note that we're talking about the 60s version of the Manchurian Candidate, not the one with Liv Schreiber.
Yes. The Denzel Washington, Liev Schreiber one. It is an interesting kind of glimpse into that moment in Hollywood. Did you get any pushback from Sinatra fans for your portrayal in the book? Because it is a warts and all sort of thing.
You know, I always prepare for that. I thought that I would get pushback in the first one. I wondered like what the family of Estes Kiefer would say, or you know, everybody in that book pretty much is dead. But I wondered what the family would say, and I did wonder if the Sinatra daughters were going to say anything, but they didn't. I think they're still even following me on Twitter, if that's even a mark of anything these days, given what's happening to Twitter. But no, I haven't yet. I mean, everything I have in the book, other than like Sinatra's role in the plot of the book, which is, you know, obviously invented, is pretty much based on real things. I mean, like his love for Ava Gardner, his suicide attempts, his whatever relationship he had with the mob. It was there. I mean, and he got prouder and prouder of it as he got older and older. But I mean, there was this weird meeting in Cuba in the 40s that Sinatra went to. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. So no, but no, I haven't. I you know, it's also like, I wondered what the Knievel family, I still wonder if the Knievel family is going to react to his portrayal in All the Demons Are Here. And then his son, Robbie Knievel, died earlier this year. Very sadly, I think he had a kidney problem or something. So I think there are still a few Knievels out there, but I guess I'll hear from them or not.
I feel like, I mean, I feel like Knievel is probably a harder guy to defend, because his whole shtick was as we see here in the book, kind of as a showman, a big talker. You mentioned social media, and since you are a social media guy, you're on the services.
Many of them. They have to stop. It's enough already. I'm on like 8 of them now, and it's like, please just stop. I can't keep posting this.
All right. So we've got quick reaction to. All right. What's the vibe on Blue Sky?
Do you want to be invited? I have an invite.
I'm in. I know I'm in. I'm on Blue Sky. It's not. I check in every once in a while. It doesn't work for me because it's very weird. Too much ALF porn in the early going for me. I did not.
You can avoid the ALF porn. I have avoided all the weird. I think there's one raunchy thread that people are on, and it's been going on for months now, and I have yet to look at it. But I've heard about it, but I've yet to look at it. Blue Sky is one of the problems with Twitter is that it became impossible to make a joke without just horrible reactions. And I'm not even getting into the Nazis, which is a problem. but the Nazis are a big problem for a guy like me. But it's just like, so for instance, Ed Sheeran was found not guilty in that civil suit from the estate of Marvin Gaye. And I went on Blue Sky and I wrote, Ed Sheeran's walking the streets, a free man, WTF. Now, I was joking. Like, I'm not actually upset. Like, I don't care. Like, I mean, whatever. He got his, the gays got the Marvin Gaye family got their day in court and whatever. But that's a joke. It's just a stupid joke. And it made people laugh. And it's such a small community. And pretty much everybody, 95% of the people there are like, this is just supposed to be fun. We're not supposed to be here like attacking each other. And like, so I got away with it. But if I had said that joke on Twitter, it would have been like, so this is what you think is important, and why aren't you covering this? And it's just like, it's just so tiresome. Yeah. It's not some personal burden. It's just like Twitter stopped being fun for me about 5 or 6 years ago.
Now, what about Threads? Threads is the hot new thing. Everyone's on Threads. What's your sense of the vibe? I'm
trying to figure out the vibe there. It seems like Twitter before the Nazis invaded. So it's like, 1939 Paris. But I don't know what it's going to be. Like, I haven't really made any. I think I posted something like, seriously, guys, I don't want no scrubs. Just to see, whatever. Like, you just what social media for a 54-year-old anchorman should be and could be are two different things. Like, I want it to be someplace I can just go and make a joke and like play off. Like, that's how I first met you, frankly, on social media, on Twitter. You were funny and engaging, and there were all these fun memes about how you're always wrong, which you're not. Obviously, you're usually right, but it's a funny meme. And like, I've met so many people, and then, you know, it doesn't matter how many quality filters you put up. Like, at a certain point, the bad faith actors just make it not fun to like have exchanges with people anymore.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Do you agree?
Yeah, totally. No, this is one reason why I like Threads for now, but anything that gets beyond a certain size,
right,
that's untenable. And it's hard. It's hard to manage that balance because, I mean, look, there's the other issue here, which is the network effect of having a large network is great because you get more of those endorphins when you get the likes and the replies and the retweets and whatever. But like, it comes at a real cost, and it's an issue.
One of the things that is nice about Blue Sky is that it is a place where a lot of people who have been silenced by the Nazis feel comfortable. And I don't even necessarily mean Nazis, although sadly in this day and age, when people say Nazis, they often mean it literally. But there are a lot of people, there are a lot of women and journalists of color and activists of color and people in the trans community who are like on Blue Sky and like exhaling for the first time in like 7 years because like people aren't like they'll post something about, I don't know, their area of expertise on let's just say film or whatever, and like nobody's saying you're a dude, you know, and it's like, people can think whatever they want about the trans community, but like they should be allowed to like exist and just like live their life. So that's one of the nice things about Blue Sky, and it would be nice if Threads were that for everyone. But again, we'll see. You're right; it gets big enough, and then the bad faith actors start coming in. There is a contingent of people, not just Americans, and they're left, right, center. They're from all forces who are just determined to ruin joy, who are just determined to like, you might post something about a movie and they're like, let's say like you didn't, I don't even know what your view of Flash was because I've been on vacation for the last few weeks, but let's say you liked Flash and somebody wants to come in and start talking to you about Ezra Miller's, you know, troublesome personal life. Yeah. And like, how dare you? And it's just like, I agree with you that he shouldn't have been doing these things. I'm not talking about that, though. I'm a film critic. You know what I mean? Right. Like, there's
trust that I'm very familiar with that whole conversation. Don't worry. All right, let's bring it back to the books. There has to be somebody in Hollywood circling these. There's going to be a Netflix series or
there is. I'll tell you what's going on. So there is right before the writers' strike. We were working on, and I can't tell you the name of the showrunner, but a showrunner from a major streamer and an executive producer that was going to take the job. We were all talking about a streamer version of The Devil May Dance with Christian Slater as Charlie. And Slater is in and excited. I met him when we were filming. I don't know if you saw Fleischman is in Trouble. It was a really good show. I think it was on FX, based on a great book by Taffy. And I met him. For some reason, I'm in a scene. I don't know what I'm doing there. It's supposed to be the year 2000 or something, you know, when I was 31 and didn't own a suit. But I'm in a scene interviewing him. And Slater and I hit it off as he's a wonderful guy. And anybody my age, you know, would be excited to meet him because he was the star of so many films that were so important to people in the, like Pump Up the Volume and Heathers and Broken Arrow and just a million things from that era, late 80s and early 90s. Anyway, not to mention like how good he was on Mr. Robot and stuff like that. Yeah. Anyway, he and I hit it off. I said, you should read these novels because you'd be a good Charlie. Because he's I think he's very well able to convey like being a good guy but struggling with demons, which is Charlie's kind of shtick. And he also has a face that like I could see existing in 1954 or 1962. You know, the way that Spielberg cast Saving Private Ryan, he was looking for like first generation American faces. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so Slater was excited. He's in and he liked The Devil May Dance. And we were talking about like very seriously about getting something going, and then the writer's strike. So as soon as that's resolved, I'll let you know. And you know, we'll definitely we'll definitely do a Bulwark Goes to Hollywood when we have more to tell you about that, and I'll bring Slater with me.
Hey, all right. Let's. Well, as you know, I always like to close these interviews by asking if there's anything I should have asked. If you think there's anything people should know about All the Demons Are Here, any of your other books, anything else going on in the world, what should folks know about?
No, I mean, you think you hit anything. The book is. I'm really excited about it. I worked really hard on it, and I think it's fun. And the one thing I'll say that's different about this third book, in addition to hopefully I became a better writer along the way, because you do learn as you go when it comes to this sort of thing, especially learning how to, as Faulkner put it, kill your babies and cut things, eliminate chapters, eliminate paragraphs, etc. Kill your darlings, I guess he said. I know that I am competing not just with other books, but with podcasts and streamers and Twitter and Threads and Blue Sky. Like, I know when I ask you to read my book, like that I'm asking you to like pay attention to something when you've got like a million things coming at you. And I wrote it thinking that, like, I want people to dive into it and really care about the characters and really turn the page to see what happens next, because they don't really know what's going to happen next. And so I hope that comes across, but I just want to know that I want people to know I'm trying to meet you where you are. I get how much of a demand there is for your eyeballs, and I'm really trying to meet you where you are.
I will say again, these are compulsively readable books. They are. I read all three of them in the span of time it took me to read Blood Meridian last month. So you know, they are good.
I do ask less reads of you than Cormac McCarthy does.
Yes,
I ask less of you.
It is good, and I do. Look, I will say, just put on my. I don't write a lot of literary criticism, but I will throw on my critic hat for a second, and I will say that. I think All the Demons Are Here. It is in the first book in particular. There was definitely a little bit of, and again, I don't want this to come across as too harsh, but a little bit of name dropping. Like, these are names I know from this era. And by the time we get to All the Demons Are Here, I think that's been worked out of your system. It's snappier, snippier. Gets really going, but everybody should read the Hellfire Club and the Devil May Dance in addition to this.
But right now, all you need to do is read All the Demons Are Here. That's assignment number one.
Yes, that's pick it up, get it on the bestseller list, folks. All right, that is it for this week's episode. My name again, Sonny Bunch. I'm culture editor at The Bulwark, and I will be back next week with another episode. We'll see you guys then.
Welcome to Talkville, the ultimate Smallville rewatch podcast. Look, we have a lot of fans. We have a lot of people that watch the show. We have a lot of people that still watch Smallville. They show up to the cons. They're glorious. They're awesome. They're just loyal is the word. I guess I'm proud of the show. So I'm like, come on, man. Smallville. Because now everybody's like, Arrow and this. And these are all great shows. I'm not knocking the shows. I'm just saying, don't you remember us before the social media? I want to be a meme. Meme.
Catch up with season 1 or start season 2 on YouTube or wherever you listen.